Assalamualaikum and good morning. I'm Nurul Anati binti Muhammad Zulmi, matric number MC260139577 from Bachelor in Education in Major Special Need. So today I will be present three major approach to learning: the cognitive, behaviors, and humanistic approach. I will explain the key, the principles, how they are applied in the classroom, and briefly as well as each other. So next, we move to introduction. So cognitive. So cognitive learning theory is an education approach causing or internal mental process rather than just observable behaviors. It view learning as a active participants who process, organize, store, and retrieve information rather than passive risk of facts. Next, for behaviorists is a beginning is a foundation learning theory focused on the idea the that education learning result in evaluation change in behavior. Instead of focus on internal mental truth of feeling behaviors, looking strictly at how external factor. So environmental cue and concerns shape how students learn. So for introduction and humanistic education focus on personal growth, emotional instead motivation in learning. So inspired by Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers, it's an emphasize a supportive environment where students feel valued and motivated to reach their full potential. So next, we move to the concept approach. For the core, core assumed active knowledge construct the relief of pure mental from rote schemas and strict human process limitation. So, such as the thinking, memory, and problem. So, the key theories, James Pigret, James Brook, and Lev Vygotsky. So, for James Pigret, the stage of a convention development. So, the Lev Vygotsky. So for the social culture theory, so the last one is James Bourne, so models of presentive. For this key principles, active learning, pure knowledge, influence learning, learning invalid informations, meaning learning, meta concept, thinking about the thinking, so individual different in learning. So this approach of view learns as active passive participants who construct their own understanding. Next, we move to classroom application in primary school. So cognitive learn in the classroom focus on how students think, process, and remember informations. Um, Instead of only memorize fact, student active build understand the truth discussion, problem solving, and reflection. For example, a teacher explain the step, reasoning behind the solving a math. Student discuss a text connects to previous knowledge. Learning reflect on an assignment to approve their stretch. So active as a student analysis, compare, and evaluation. So the teacher provide support at the first and gradually reduce it as student become the confident. So the critical analysis, cognitive learns improve engagement, understand and long-term retention because student active construct knowledge. However, it can be challenged because it require more planning time, support from teacher, overall is help develop independence learn who can apply the knowledge rather than simple reference. The strength of the cognitive approach is that the promotion the understand to critical thinking. However, it can be the time consuming and sometimes difficult to apply in the large classroom. So for the visual support, the visual show interactive teaching is designed to support cognitive learning. The light diagram example the structure of it, including visual display, icon storage, and interactive section. So the key idea is a contact the plus the view mind, meaning the main student correct understand by connecting learning material when they are own their thinking and experience. So that's it. It's encourage active learning, problem solving, and deep understand. However, they need a clear learning objective and clear guidelines to avoid become a distractions. So next, we move to the behavior approach. The behavior approach focus on observation behavior, which is it suggests that learning happening through the stimulation response behavior is shaped by reward or punishment. So the key theories include by B.F. Skinner for the response race and classroom behavior management. For the John B. His focus on foundation of behaviors. For Edward Tom Dyke, he focused for learning loss and education psychology. So even Pavlov, they focus on classical conditions. So for Albert Bandura, the focus on variation, learning, and the right between behaviors and cognitive theories. So for the key principle, he used the classical conditioning, operate conditioning, stimulate generalizations and discriminations. So reinforce expectations and punishment. For the classroom application, that can be seen when a teacher uses a reward system, such as a give a sticker or prize or when students complete their work, behavior behave well. Overall, over time, the student repeat the behavior because they expect the reward. For the critical analysis, a strength of the approach is that is a very effective classroom management and teaching basic skill. However, a limitation is that the student may rely too much on the reward and may develop a deep understand. So the for the visual support, the behavior approach said that learning happens with behavior is shaped by rewards and conscious. If a student reward, they are more likely repeat the behavior. If a behavior is a no or punishment, it is a less like to happens again. So next we move to the humanistic approach. The humanistic approach focus on the whole persons, include emotional motivation and personal growth up. So which is key theoristic include the Carl Rogers for focus on student-centered learning and Abraham Maslow on focus hierarchy of need. So the approach emphasizes the student learn best when they feel safe about value and motivation. Emphasize personal growth, self actual actualism and emotional will begin. So learning is student centered on focus on the whole the person. So the classroom application for secondary school, which is a teacher may allow students to choose their own project topic, encourage reflections, and the teacher act as a facilitator rather than given direct instruction, which is students set a personal learning, the teacher act as a facilitator, guide a rather the instruction, reflection activity help a student evaluate their own progress to learning. So for the critical analysis, a strength of this approach is a built confidence and independence from the student. However, the limitation is it can lack a structure and maybe harder to access. So which is strength, support motivation, confidence, and emotional develop from student. For the limitation, can lack a structure and many be difficult to access or the student outcome. So for the visual support, the humanistic approach focus on the whole student, their feeling, confident, and personal growth up. So student learn best. For example, the student learn best when they feel safe, respect, and motivated. So learning is a driven by internal motivations and not for the reward only. For the key ideas, student-centered learning focus on self-esteem and emotional, encourage independence and choice. So for the end of the my presentation, for the conclusions, the behaviors, cognitive, and humanistic approach is applying learning in a different way. For behaviors, is focused on reward and behavior cognitive, reward and behavior. For cognitive is a focus on the thinking, understanding, and the humanistic is a focus on personal growth and feelings. In the practice, a teacher combine all the three to create effective learning to experience. So that's it for me. Thank you.